Everybody, it's Tim. I'm working on figures today. These are for that Panzer 4H that I showed you in a previous video. These are tank riders and a radio guy, I think, and a commander. It's like, I don't know, a 10-pack of figures I got off of eBay. They are resin, and when you buy resin kits, and or obviously the 3D resin prints are a little bit more cleaner, but they still have some cleanup in some spots as well. But it's nice, today's technology with the resin prints are fantastic. But when you get them, they'll often have seams down the arm, back of the arm, front of the arm, down the back or the crease of the leg somewhere, down, the sides, inside somewhere. They'll have lines in some unclean spots, lips and lifts. The features in the face are often very delicate. There's a lot of delicate things going on. You need to be very careful when you're working with them so you don't break stuff. And I mean really delicate, particularly with the rifles and the guns and anything that's tiny. So when I get these, they're a little bit, they come in assemblies, not with instructions because of where I got them from. So sometimes I have to kind of like trial and error, figure out where they go or how they'll fit. I do have reference pictures that the seller had with them, so I'll reference that a lot. And in a lot of cases, if they're figures that are specifically for a certain kit, I'll fit them to that kit to make sure that things look right. One thing I do want to say is always take a look at what's on them. I'm looking at this under my magnifying glass, by the way, because I have to. Even with my readers on, I just like the sharpness of looking through it. Looking at anything tiny through a magnifying glass. But you can see there's a seam right here. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a seam going straight down here that has to be cleaned up. Right across here, across this whole leg here, across the back of the jacket right there. Right there. So sometimes if you're not sure if that stuff is supposed to be there, get reference books. I have a lot of reference books I use by Squadron and Osprey, I believe it's called. Get books or go online and look things up and make sure that you're not accidentally sanding off or removing something that belongs there. That is a big recommendation. Always do your research before you start. But what I'll do is I'll take a knife. It's usually, and I use an X-Acto blade a lot to shave off flash or resin. It's just what I like to use. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it. Just don't, over push. Work it like, into the contour of the shape itself, the figure or the area. Make sure if it's a rounded area, curved, concave, whatever, work to that. Don't just sand down till you end up with the flat spot, because that's not going to look natural. That's not the intention of the figure or the way it was designed. Like in these crevices here, just come up into it gently. And then I'll also, once I got the majority of the stuff off, I will use a 3000 or a 2500 or 1000 sanding pad to smooth it over. It makes it look really nice and clean. And obviously you use the higher grit sanding paper so you're not removing too much material from the figure and or whatever it is you're sanding. I do a lot of the same things with an X-Acto blade when I'm actually building kits too. It's just my preference for getting the majority of flash away. I just like the way it is, the way it's doing it. Some people strictly stick to files and or sanding sticks, which I do have. Again, just having a number of tools on hand is a big help. Because you'll get in a jam, you'll be like, oh my god, look at this area here, how am I supposed to get into that? That's why it's always good to have a number of X-Acto blades, or different X-Acto blades and different tools. So this is the 3000 paper, I just smooth that away. And then I'll take this and I'll just brush gently, not real hard. 3000 can remove, particularly if you got like small details. It absolutely can remove too much, so you got to be careful, you know. Back and forth, forward, whatever you may want to do. And then try to get in the crevices like you're building on the crevices. In some cases, when you use it, you'll see the pieces that still need to be removed, like this little piece right here. And again, you know, these are tiny, right? Sometimes you think like, well, who's going to bend down and look at all that detail? I do it because I like it, but also if you enter contests, which I start doing recently, some people will look for stuff like that. You know, oh, look at this seam, it's running all the way down here. They didn't clean up the piece properly, and that, you know, takes away points. And sometimes, of lately, I've been using black primer, which is nice. Black primer looks great, and it also creates shadow when you're painting. I've only been painting figures for a little while, so I still have a lot to learn and to get better at, particularly faces, skin tones in general. I seem to do pretty good, and I'll show some of that stuff, pretty good with fabrics. I do pretty good with these kits when I got them, again, because there's no instructions, which is kind of lame, but I expect that. I had to sit down and like literally try to figure out what pieces we'll put with what. But they're numbered, which is kind of cool. At least you can group everything together by number, but in some cases it's not numbered, or it might broke off and you can't really see what's up. Like this piece right here is got a tiny little lip right there that doesn't belong there. I'll use cutters. These are a little bit more precise, these cutters right here, than my other pair. And I might not snip it all the way down because I'm always afraid I'm going to break it. I'll snip it close, and then I'll use a sanding stick to sand it down to where it belongs, and just gently do it until I get it where it's supposed to go. I have a brush I always have on hand, a Bristol brush that I like to use for cleaning up. I use Bristol brushes because they're like old school, you know, regular brooms. They'll really dig in and get stuff out of the crevices, where you can use a regular soft brush, I guess. But the Bristol brushes, to me, are a little bit better. Anything that looks slightly off, like this collar has a little bit of a lip on it and it's a little messed up. Sometimes I'll go over with Mr. White Putty and I'll clean up the lines and the seams, but I'll do that in the end. So I assemble everything one by one, line them up, and then I will go through one by one and patch any kind of holes or divots or pockets, anything that looks like it doesn't really belong. I'll do that. And I put toothpicks in the bottom of every one of my figures after I sand them, after I get the majority, because the toothpick will just kind of get in the way early on. So I wait a little bit to do that. Sometimes the sharp lines are nice, you know, they're good. But these lines right here seem to me like they're seams. Sometimes I wonder, you know, pants obviously have a seam that go down the outside, right? So you could probably get away with leaving some of it there, but I just remove it. If I know the uniform or the outfit in particular, again, research, have heavy seams, then I'll consider leaving them. Yeah, it's pretty good. And then after you paint it, you might see some other stuff that needs to be tweaked. I was talking about the black primer. So I've been using black primer. But the one thing I have noticed about black primer is it will conceal some mistakes, whereas gray primer will still, will bring them out where the seams are, some stuff you might have missed or imperfections. So sometimes, even though I use the black primer, like right here, I can't tell if this little lip right here is supposed to be a button or it's junk. I'm going to leave it there. I think it might supposed to be a button. So when I drill the holes, I have a hand pin drill. When there's seated figures like this, I'll just stick it right in the bottom end area. And I drill it in, I don't know, 1/4 inch. I'll show you in a second. Always go slow. Make sure you're drawing a straight line into the mass. When I have to do it in the feet, I use a thinner bit by a little bit, but it is tedious. You got to be real precise, and I always go in through the heel on standing figures, and I can show you a few of those. So I'll put my finger where the drill is to see how deep it is, and then back it out. And then I'll say, oh, that's pretty good. I was like, oh, what is that? 1/4 inch maybe, I don't know. And then I get a toothpick out. Come on. And I'll cut the tip off the toothpick, not all the way, but just enough to make it kind of fatter so it doesn't go in and bottom out too soon. And then I'll give it a push to see if it works. It does. And then because I leave the wood in there and then later on come back and just cut it straight off so it's the hole's already filled in, I'll take a little bit of gel super glue and just get it in there so it holds it in, so I don't have to worry about it popping off on me. And then I'll push it back in like that. And there you go. And now at this point, I can continue to work on it. And then I also take the 3000. What did I do over here? And I might go over some of the other stuff, the edges. That's not 3000. That was 600. I can feel the difference. Whenever you're using sandpaper on delicate places, particularly like face features, be real easy with the pressure, because you could sand a nose down right quick, and then you're going to have to build it up with some putty or something. I've done that before. Again, that's all trial and error, learning. Be careful what you do. Different size sanding sticks are always awesome to have on hand. You can buy these in bundles. They're pretty good and they'll last quite some time. I guess it depends on how much kit building you do. For me, it's, I don't know. I don't even know what I would say I build a year. Sometimes I have time to do it. Sometimes I don't. And sometimes when you're looking at things under a magnifying glass, you think you're over, what do you want to call it? Or you're over detailing, because the reality is most people won't even be looking at it this way. They'll be looking at it with bare eyes. And you look down, and when you see it from bare eyes, you go, oh, that's pretty clean. It's clean enough. I have to do some figuring out on which guy is supposed to have what parts. I believe this 32 goes with this head. And he's got a little bit of a neck on him. But on this, as you can see, I got to clean this out and then drill that down a little bit so that this head will fit in there properly. So I'll just clip this out first. Bring it up to the line where the collar is. And then I'll take because it's probably close to the right size for starters, and I'll just use my drill to start the removal of the excess in the neck area. And then you might have to use a thin X-Acto blade to kind of pull the rest out. Indoor wide one, whatever works best for you. Or you might want to go a little bit wider. This material is pretty soft though, so you always got to keep that in mind. particularly if it's not like dry all the way. Sometimes I think resin takes months before it cures properly. Alright. Again, this will be trial and error, like does the head fit right? Not sure. And if you overdo it, you know, you can always just build it back up in there with something, a little bit of putty, and then let that dry and come back to it. No harm done. Again, I think this guy is for this guy. That's why his head's so I think he is 31. These helmets are all pretty much the same, but I believe this guy is 32. So sometimes when it comes to removing pieces, when they're close, I often lay it down flat against a cutting board or off to the edge so I can get a clean flat line, meaning like, say this is the pad. I'll lay it down so that when I'm going to cut, I'm not cutting this on an angle and there's a gap and it could create damage or chip something or have an unlevel cut. I'll lay the edge of the pad down so it's flat like that, level. So this way when I'm cutting, it's getting a nice even straight line on the pressure. So I'm going to bring this down here to cut the head off. And there we go. It's got a little bit of a defect on there. Not defect, I'm sorry. A little bit of material from the cut. You can do this one or two ways. Sometimes I'll glue it on and then I'll sand it. But you have to be a little bit more delicate. Some figures will have some of the most delicate pieces on them. All right. The faces on these are kind of cool. Alright, yeah, this guy's gonna have to dig that hole down deeper in order for that to fit in there, right? And they gotta figure out exactly where. I'll have to look at the original picture. See the piece of the whatchamacallit's missing here? Piece of the lens. Or not the lens, but the binoculars, the one side's missing. I'll build that and fake it and glue it on there. Not fake it, but build something that looks pretty damn close to it. Put it on there. So it doesn't look like it's broken.